Hey, this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. Today is the 60th anniversary of the unveiling of the Jaguar E-Type. And while I wasn't around yet, it's only my 50th anniversary this year, it was a big day in my life. E-Types are a great car from the past, but they've always represented a bright future for me. I've been dealing with them since I was a kid, and it has made life a great adventure. And so what I wanted to do for today was do something a little special, a little different, and I wanted to share the adventure that I'm having and I'm going to be having throughout this year with this car. This is a really great E-Type. I picked this up last September. This is a 1966 Series 1 4.2 liter E-Type Roadster. The story of the car is great. The originality of this car is mind-blowing. And what we're going to try to do is simply clean this car up, straighten things up, and then bring it back to life without restoring it to preserve all of that originality. This is a one-owner E-Type. I purchased the car last October from the wife of the gentleman who bought it new. He was a guy named Bill. He spent his entire life living in Virginia in the foothills of the mountains, grew up on a farm. He graduated in 1962 and enlisted in the Air Force. The Air Force took him around the world, and he ended up in Germany to finish out his service. But he came back to Virginia in swinging 60s style, because right before he left Germany, he walked into Peter Lindner's Jaguar dealership in Frankfurt and purchased this car. This car was built in August of 1966. It's a Series 1 Roadster with all the trimmings that everyone wants, and it really came along at the peak of six-cylinder E-Type production. It was only a few months later that the covers on the headlights were removed, and then after that emissions started getting put on. But this is the true Series 1 E-Type in its most refined form. Bill came home from Germany with the car in 1966, and it was really his baby and unlike anything else around town. And he drove it regularly, but put the car up in 1971, and it was never driven again. And because of that, and because of the care of storing it for the rest of his life, this car is incredibly original. It is 99.9% as it left the factory. Every cooling hose is original from the factory. All the nuts and bolts and everything are unmolested. There are a few things like the replaced plug wires. He went through a few sets of plugs, plug wires, several sets of tires, but we know everything that Bill replaced because in the cubby box of the car is a small notebook. And in the notebook, he has written down every repair that he made to the car starting at 8,300 miles. You can see plugs. He's got the dates and the miles on here. And it pretty much matches up with the few things we see on the car that aren't original. And then if you want to look over there, try to get the fact that by the time he put the car up in 1971, he had racked up 37,000 miles. Because the car came from Germany as a German export car, and we don't know if Bill ordered it or if he just walked in and bought it off the lot, but either way, it carries the few things that make it specific to the German market. The first of those are the amber lenses. And you may note that this lens has a different shape than any other lenses that you've seen. I'm working with the E-Type Originality guys now. They're writing a new book. This lens and all four lenses are amber, and this is original to the car. I have seen these before, didn't quite know what they were, but this amber lens with the little bulge is correct for the original export market to Germany and possibly a few others. The next thing that is very specific to Germany is the German two-eared safety knockoffs. These safety knockoffs are different than what you would typically see on a Series 2 or 3 car, which is what they call the three-eared, but there's not much of it there, knockoff. Before this went onto the cars in 1968, all cars had eared spinners except the German cars had these little stubby spinners. And they require a special knockoff tool. Again, at first glance, it looks like your Series 2 car. But if you look on the back side, it has these notches that are specific to fitting on this shape. It's a little tricky to get on there, but it works. There you go. And then you would spin it like that and go ahead and hit it with your knockoff hammer that way. The next German-specific feature is the locking steering column. That's down here. But this is not the same as the locking steering column on your Series 2 cars. This is something completely different that's kind of a little add-on piece. Now, it does turn and unlock, and then it does have a spring-loaded, what would seem like a starting function, and it does have two large wires going to it. I, of course, haven't had the car running yet, and I've never dealt with a German E-Type, so I don't know if this just works the locking column or if it does also start, because you do still have the ignition key here. I don't know if, maybe that's cut off, but we'll be finding out. One of the greatest things about these cars is always the story. And I've had this car for a few months. I've gone over it with a fine-tooth comb, and I've talked to Bill's wife several times about the story, but I never noticed this until just this minute. Come check this out. While Brent and I were filming the segment on the German steering column lock, I noticed there was something on the cigar lighter, and look at this. There is a woman's ring on here, and it has been screwed on. Now, it's nothing fancy. It's like a little piece of costume jewelry or something, but what's the story on that, and why did Bill take the time to screw it on there? That's just so cool. Bill drove the car regularly for several years, blasted all around, and it really was his baby. But somewhere along the way of 1970, 71, he bought a Barracuda. He actually owned an international truck. He got married in 1970, and at some time in 1971, which is actually the year I was born, he put the car up because it was starting to have engine problems. It probably was a temporary measure, but the car never moved again. He put the car into his father's barn, and it stayed there for 6 years until 1977, when he and his wife bought a new house. The house was on a sunny hillside right in the foothills of the mountains, and it had, because it was on a steep hill, it had a garage door that went into the basement. This car was one of the first things that they moved into the house. They pushed it into that door, and his wife said it never moved again. And that's where it was when I picked it up last October. And because it was in the house physically and had the same heating and air conditioning that the rest of the house did, now granted it was in the basement, so it might have been a little colder, but it wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold, wasn't too dry, wasn't too damp. And while we do have some mold, and obviously this door panel is falling apart, but I think we can fix that. There's a little bit of mold here. This car is going to clean up incredibly. These are the original seat belts. They are just as supple as the day they were new. The leather on the seats is a little hard, but aside from the driver's side bottom, it's all restorable. and we're going to talk about that in a later episode. The top has been replaced. So sometime in those first 5 years, he did put a new top on it. And you can't lift the top without putting the seats forward. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Here is the top that he put on, again, sometime before 1971. It does not have the lead anti-drumming feature in it, but it does have the sewn-in pouch to put that in. So this is a very early replacement top. Again, one of the very few things on the car that's not original. Now, if we open the boot, we start to see what this paint is going to look like when we wash it off and clean it up. And by the way, this car is exactly the way I picked it up. I wanted to start with a clean, honest, not clean, but unclean, honest representation of what I got. And so you can see this is all the original paint. Everything's original. You can see here where the boot lid hinges have never been off. It's really helping us understand how the cars were built, how they were put together, how they were painted, all of those types of things. This was off, and this was all disorganized and open and thrown in there. This panel was off. I think a fuel pump problem may have been part of why the car came off the road, because the air cleaner was also off, and we do have that. Here's the original tonneau cover. Again, dirty, little bit of mold, but it's going to clean right up. Here's the back side. This is all correct for a 66. And then I want to show you something in here. Now, I put this all back together to make it look a little more presentable for the video. That's one of the few things I did do. But this was all apart when I picked the car up. Come around behind me here. Down in here, this can was wrapped in brown paper. And it was wrapped almost like a Tootsie Roll, just kind of twisted on the ends. I didn't understand what it was, and obviously it had leaked out, and I thought it was some type of sealing agent. So I did pop it out of there, and you can see it's leaked all over the boot floor. And I went to look at it to see what it is. Made a few phone calls because it just didn't make sense to me. It almost looked like a can of some type of sealer that came with the car originally. This is the original touch-up paint that was sent with the cars out of the factory so that the dealer could touch up any damage that was done in shipping. It's just a regular can of paint that they took the paint they were painting the cars with, poured some in here, hammered the lid on, and sent it down the road with the car. This almost never made it on to the customer. I was speaking to the gentleman who runs the E-Type UK Originality forum. He had never seen a can. I sent him pictures, and you can go out there, and this is on there now. So this is what the original touch-up paint looked like. It looks like Bill had it open and did a little bit of touch-up here and there. I guess he didn't put the lid on very well because there it is. It leaked out, and that is what 50-year-old red paint looks like after it leaks out of the can. So as I mentioned before, it's a great E-Type. As a 66, it's got the 4.2-liter engine. It has the better braking system with the power booster. It's got the more comfortable seats. It's got the most desirable gearbox, which is the EJ gearbox that is the full-synchro, close ratio gearbox. And unbelievably, as a German car, this car typically would have come with a 307 rear instead of a 354 for the American market. It would have come with a 307 rear and a speedometer in kilometers per hour. I don't know if the car was special order or they just knew it was going to the American market, but this car has a factory 288 rear with the matching correct speedometer in miles per hour. So that is amazing. It probably has an unlimited top speed, and Bill's wife said he used to drive it fast and scare the hell out of her. But on a car like this, originality and condition are everything. And the condition here is starting to fall down where the originality stands out. This is the original paint from the factory. It looks like it has been definitely touched up here, and that could even be a delivery thing because they were shipped with a board across here, and it's very common for these to get pushed in. So you can see that there has been a respray here and here. And I believe it's been resprayed underneath there, way down a little bit. But this nose is all virgin, original, perfect. Now over here, there's a little something going on here. We may have had a respray here, and it may have rusted through here early, and it looks like we might have a little bit of a respray here. But otherwise, the paint is all original. Now, one thing about this car that's particular to where Bill lived, there is a paving method called tar and chip. And it has happened here. They did it to my street right in front of the house. I'm kind of on the edge of the suburbs. What they do is they come along and they spray the street with hot, wet tar. And then they come behind it and put down small gravel, almost like the sprinkles on a cupcake or a donut. And for the first week that is down, it is a nightmare. And it looks, Bill lives in an area that definitely would have the roads made like that. I'm familiar with that area, and it's right up against the mountains where it turns to dirt roads. That definitely happened to this car almost the day that it happened. And you can see the spray of the tar, and here are all the chips, and they are firmly glued in there. And it is like this in all four wheel wells. It almost makes you wonder if maybe this is what took the car off the road, that he lived in an area where they had done this. This happened to his baby. It made him sick, and then he never drove it again until the road was better, and by then life had gotten in the way and things had changed. But that all needs to be cleaned. There's a lot of dirt inside of here. We're going to start cleaning this up. I'm sure there'll be lots of opinions on this car, everything ranging from it needs a full restoration to don't touch it, don't even clean it. Well, I am going to clean it, and I am going to try to get it running and going again. But like a doctor, my mantra during this process is going to be first, do no harm. And so I've already had it for 4 months and haven't touched it. This is the dirt that came on it, and any dirt that's off are the handprints that we put on it, just moving it around. But you can see on the chrome, just from touching it with our hands, it has started to take off this oxidation layer. Back here on the bumper, on the day that I picked it up, I literally licked my thumb and put it down here like this to see what was going to happen, and it brought the chrome right up. So the car is going to clean up beautifully. I believe it was waxed before it was put away, and you can see remnants of the wax dripping around, and it's also got some funny little black spots that I think are an organic wax that's starting to decompose a little. So we're going to clean it up, and we're going to get it going, and it's going to be a fun project, but we're going to keep the originality as best we can. And I wanted to just take you guys along for the ride and follow it throughout the rest of the year. We'll learn a lot about what's original and how these cars were built, maybe how to take care of things right and wrong, but I want to learn from other people's mistakes and not make them here. And so thanks for watching. I hope this was a fun video for the 60th anniversary, and keep coming back to our YouTube channel for great videos on how to do the metalwork on cars that don't like this. That's another reason this is so great. Usually we get them and they're gone from here down. So this is also fun for us that way. But we've got a lot of videos on metalwork, just anything about E-types. Like I said, they've been a great adventure for my entire life, and I hope you come along for the ride this year. Thanks for watching.